Having forgotten last night to say anything about meetings, I will do this now before the talk. What are meetings for? For anything that we wish to communicate. Any problem you have, anything you wish to bring up in a meeting is all right. There is nothing taboo. If you just want to say hello, spend a little time, maximum is 10 minutes, without having any questions or any comments, then that's fine. We can sit quietly together, listen to the sounds inside and outside, quietly, spaciously. Group meetings, anyone can bring up anything in a group meeting, either to a person in the group meeting, if you want to address a question to me or to anyone else in the group, that's fine. Or just to address the group itself with a question or a comment, a statement, something, whatever one wishes to go into further. And then it's for anyone in a group meeting to respond who wishes to respond. Don't wait for me. This is a group meeting. The time we have set, this has been calculated, if everyone wishes to come to 3 meetings, then that's what we have in the next 4 days. It wasn't mentioned yesterday that in order for this calculation to work out, you need to come, or some people need to come on the first day. If everyone saves their meetings for the last days, then it won't work out. And there'll be the pressure of people waiting for meetings. So it's all right to come at the very beginning. One may have a habit or an idea from who knows where, that one has to be ready, get oneself ready for a meeting and accumulate energy or something. The energy is always there. Don't have to accumulate it. Don't have to be ready for it. It's always there. We're here. And something can come out you may not even have planned for it. I don't plan for anything. I don't expect anything. If you've been here before or many years before, and the same question still lingers in the mind, don't think I shouldn't bring that up to her again. Bore her with it or drain her with it. I don't feel bored or drained by questions. We're here to examine things freshly, not what you brought up last year or last time, but what's stirring now can be looked at now freshly. I use, or rather put it this way, questions that come up in meetings, group and individual, do weave themselves into talks, or a talk bases itself on questions, which does not mean that in order to be a good retreatant, you need to have a good question for Toni to have a good talk. With no question, we're right here. With the insects and the breathing, the cool air and the building heat. It's all here. The sky this morning, a pale, waning moon. And looking up again, it was gone. It was a wisp of cloud covering. Once during a meeting block, I take a break. I may come in here. That's what I usually do. If there are people sitting here, I stand with the people who are sitting, stand closely, not to examine their postures or tune into people's thinking. I'm just saying this because sometimes people wonder whether I'm doing that. I'm not interested in tuning into any thoughts. Just to be together quietly, for me, it's a glorious thing. Talk a lot during the day, and to enter into this room and be quiet with quiet people without needing to represent anything. Neither you nor I need to represent or be anything. And being together, that's a tremendous freedom. If for any reason it makes you nervous or you don't like someone standing there close to you, then let me know and I will not do it. But usually people don't mind it or feel the combined energy. Was that all about meetings now? Oh, the 10 minutes are hard to gauge. I have a little bit developed over the years an inbuilt clock. I have some feeling, but not always. So we both need to look at the clock which is there, and also to look after 10 minutes have gone by. Please don't just leave it to me to do that. Sometimes it is irritating to people if I look at the clock and the idea may come up that I want the person to leave. That's not the case. I need to keep time. Well, if it's like this morning, don't need to keep any time. It was wonderful, just having time to sit quietly for myself. If it goes over a little bit, that's all right. If it goes for 20 minutes, well, then you've used up 2 meetings. Another thing I forgot to talk about last night in talking about silence and quietness, it refers particularly to the bedrooms because people rest at different times. Some people stay up late at night, a good part of the night, because this is when they wish to sit quietly. It is very quiet during the night. So a person may rest in the daytime. So as you come into the room and see a person resting, or someone may be resting next door or below you, to move about quietly in the bedroom. And if you have a zippered case, maybe it can be left open. Some people have remarked it was very hard on their sleeping nerves to hear zippers going open and closed during their nap. Also, plastic bags have been repeatedly mentioned. If one has brought things, cosmetics or clothes in plastic bags, could they be taken out for the duration of the retreat, the plastic bag be put aside underneath the suitcase, so one doesn't have to rustle the bags during time that other people may be resting. I'm not saying this because resting time is the most important time of the retreat. It is not, but it has its place. Like eating and walking and sitting. There's nothing to be shameful, to feel ashamed about for being tired and sleeping. And if it brings about a refurbishing of the body-mind, then it has been a good thing to have rested. This is the first day of the August 1994 10-day retreat at Springwater. And as we usually do on the first day, because there are new people here and it is such an important topic, we will speak about listening. Not just speak about it. Can we start right now to listen in a new way? But I'll explain and try to demonstrate what this new way of listening is all about. And can we talk also about the role of authority in our lives? How authority is created, resented as well as craved, And then, maybe in the end, question, what is our relationship with each other? If it is not one of creating authority. Listening to a talk like this is not our usual learned, habitual listening to a lecture in which the mind, memory, thought has been trained to commit what has been said to memory, to remember it, and to compare it, compare what other people have said, and how does this compare with that. If one is identified with some idea or many ideas, then is there defensiveness in the listening? This is not what this is all about. A talk is not there to establish a truth, a dogma, a doctrine. It is not said to be remembered and followed or identified with. What is said comes directly out of looking and questioning and is put out there, as we say, to be examined communally and individually. Maybe instantly seeing, yes, it is so, I can see it. Not just I think she's right, or I hope she's right, or I believe she's right. But yes, this is so. It can be seen instantly at times. Or if it doesn't make sense, not to reject it and not to adopt it, but to leave it smoldering there, as it were. A little fire going of something one has not understood, hasn't rejected it and hasn't accepted it, and keeps wondering in the light or the warmth of that smoldering question. How is reaction taking place? How is defensiveness happening? How is identification affecting the whole organism? How is memory taken for truth, for the real thing right now? Because these things will be brought up not as the truth to be accepted, but as something to be wondered about. Alone and together. Right now, during the next 10 days, we are offering this together time, individually and in groups, where it's quite all right to say, you said today in the talk such and such, I can't see it. The way I see it is this way. Or, could you say something more about it? Are you sure this is what you meant? Or could you go over it again? I didn't understand it at all. Or is it like this? I'm putting it in my own words. Is that what you meant? And then to participate in that, so that a group dialogue is unfolding. A group discussion, name it what you want to. Where we're individually as well as collectively wondering in the light of a question, what is really happening in human beings like you and me? Because this is what talks are about most of the time. To throw fresh light on our reactions and habits and the way thought and memory and imagination permeate this whole organism, which is instantly reacting to even one solitary thought. One solitary thought can get the organism all aroused or mobilized in fear or pleasure or longing or anxiety. One thought can arouse it, or even one non-verbal memory something is seen, not even noticed, consciously, and suddenly the body is beginning to agitate with fear because of a memory associated with something that was painful or frightening in the past. And this is what is to be noticed, to be questioned, to be wondered, to be observed intelligently, not judgmentally. That's why we emphasize from the very first night talk. Blame and fault-finding and judgment and condemnation hinder investigation. On the personal level, on the group level, on the national level, international level. Having already blamed or condemned, how can we freely investigate what's going on in human beings that we all are? Not as an identity, but as a label to give rather than be more specific, which already brings about feelings of division and separation. So is it possible to listen to a talk aware of the danger of identification with one's own opinions, convictions, aware of the tendency to adopt, to make it one's own, what is being said, rather than examining without knowing? It's mine, it's hers. But what is it? What is it that's being said? And with that, an opening, an inner opening. Maybe at first to the resistance to look. There's tremendous resistance built up in us to see ourselves as we are. Because we have learned to identify strongly with lots of images about ourselves and need to begin to discern that we are not imagery, but that imagery is powerfully present, powerfully controlling this organism with its good feelings and ill feelings and the attachment to both of them. A negative image about myself does not mean one can let go of it easily. Not any easier than of any positive image, because there is a habitual clinging to being somebody, existing as this or that, and multiple images, not just one. A situation changes, different people are there, and we may see ourselves as a different person, as we did before this person entered the room, the group, the workplace. So there's a tremendous resistance to see what's really there because of the power of the image that tells us what we are like and the attachment to the certainty, in quotation marks, the attachment to the certainty of being this or that, or other people being this or that. We want it all to be sure and certain. It's easier for the brain to react habitually when it assumes this is how she is, this is how I am. And to question this certainty brings a certain disease, dis-ease, discomfort. Every time a certainty dissolves in direct looking, in open awareness, there may be some tremor, a tremor like an earthquake, something shifting. And then if thought picks it up, as it is habitually doing, saying, oh, I'm unsure, there's something to be afraid of, then the body responds to that with more discomfort. To see all of that like a vast landscape unfolding. It's a tremendous thing for a human being to observe the inner-outer landscape unfolding in relationship, in reaction. So, is it possible to see how we really are this moment? A violent thought arising, a lusting thought or feeling, a fearful idea, a fearful memory, and not squish it with the image. I'm not afraid, I'm not lusting, I'm not violent, I can't be. It would destroy my whole universe if I saw I was violent, I had violent ideas. But see, talking like this together, openly, may make it more possible to stay with it, to watch the thing that has come up and not repress it with the power of the image that I'm peace-loving or no good, incapable, not as capable as others. Others can do it, I can't. A very beloved image. To see the image and not be controlled by it is a tremendous shift in our being. And therefore a shift in our perception. We can see what is really there temporarily. Thoughts come and go. The most violent or the most loving thoughts come and go like the clouds. Nothing is here permanently. That's why it's impossible to say in terms of our daily experiences and reactions and capabilities or incapabilities what we really are. It's all constantly fluxing, shifting, depending on the conditions and situation we're in. So, is it possible to listen inwardly? And by listening we mean seeing, looking, feeling, observing, tasting, smelling inwardly what is happening, rather than cling to the image of knowing what's happening. So if one's image feels rattled by something that comes up in a talk, will the mind tune out, not listen, think of something else? It happens so quickly, happens so automatically maybe, that is not even noticed for a long time. Or can one notice it? The discomfort and the moving away, and not move away because it's noticed. Stay with it. And maybe discover for the first time that it's all right to listen to anything if one is not identified with it, with anything. We have become identified with ideas about ourselves because our life seemed to depend upon it, of being the good boy, the good girl. If we weren't a good girl or boy, it was not very comfortable at home or at school. It could be very painful, physically, emotionally, psychologically, to not be good, to be blamed, to be told one was bad. I'm just using those expressions. Each one fill in their own. And then this amazing conviction, deeply, deeply rooted, that what I think I am, I really am. And what others think I am, I truly am. And that's what we're questioning here. This deeply rooted conviction that I am what I think I am. Good, bad, capable, incapable, better, worse, talented, not talented, pretty, ugly. and above all, even sitting deeper than that I am separate from others. It's so deep. The conviction is so deep, so strong, so totally accepted and shared that in the beginning we don't even know how to go about questioning it because it seems to be the truth. Here's the separate body, and that's me. And all I know about it is me and the identity with it, needing to be certain about myself. So in listening to a talk, when there's some feeling of discomfort, it can be just a wink of it, a touch of it. Let that be the alarm blinker. Watch, there's something to be watched, because there's about to be an escape from what is being said, not wanting to hear it, not wanting to look for fear of ending up in uncertainty about what I really am. Or maybe not uncertainty, but a new certainty. Oh my God, I'm like this now. I thought I was like that. And solidifying what is being said into a new image about oneself. So can one listen and be aware of this tremendous identity with one's ideas about oneself, with one's body. The strongest identity there is. And it's false, because we're not the ideas about ourselves, our body, our capacities. The language is so misleading. We say ours. But who's the owner of it all? Or is there just a constantly unfolding functioning, alone and in reaction, based on strongly established habits of thinking, defending, attacking, feeling guilty, feeling happy, all functioning as if on its own, with no one there doing it on purpose, intentionally. It happens out of relationship of the total with itself, the totality of humanity and universe reacting with itself, against itself, for itself. One totality in action and reaction. And the awareness of that, the awakening awareness of it all, not being identified with anything. It just sheds light. It just brings to light what is so, without any need to blame or praise. And therefore open to listen and look further. No need to escape, no need to cling. But watching, listening to crows cawing, breath flowing, physical sensations, and the thoughts, if there are thoughts in the mind, what are they this moment? To see them. And caw, caw, caw is there. Thump. To listen openly to a talk as well as speaking a talk is a functioning of energy. And if one is very tired, one may not be able to to listen, falling asleep part of the time. People tell this to me. The first talk, I hardly heard anything. The second talk, maybe a little bit more, but not much more. Third talk was a little bit better. Very tired during talks. So we addressed the tiredness before this talk and last night to not feel ashamed of it, to get good rest. And if it's at all possible, compatible with your job, that you take a rest before the talk. That's very helpful. I take the good nap or rest of my day before the talk, after breakfast. That's why we've asked people not to do the vacuuming right in that apartment area. Because then there is a real reawakening of energy to talk, to look, to share. And in the course of the retreat, one will find that without much doing, there is more energy to listen. So if one has missed things and wants to go over talk, I don't know whether they're available during the retreat. They're certainly available after the retreat, not to worry about what has passed. A lot of things will be said again, maybe in new ways, but it's always the same thing we're talking about. Also to be comfortable for the talk, to sit in a chair if that's the most comfortable way, with whatever cushions one may find to help one. Be at ease, be relaxed, so the bottle doesn't have to do battle with pain, because then part of the energy is drained off into fighting pain and worrying about it. So the more relaxed and at ease the body, the easier the listening, inwardly, outwardly. If something is not clear, write it down after the talk. There's paper and pencil all over the place. What it was that didn't make sense, or one sees differently, to bring it up in a meeting. I'm not claiming anything like saying the right thing all the time. I can make mistakes like everybody else. Or use a word which does not fit or that arouses disturbing associations or false associations which were not intended. So this is what meetings are for, to communicate with each other about deep concerns, deep problems that we seem to have with ourselves and each other, and to bring them to light and maybe see them evaporate in the light of awareness, which is much vaster than the space of our problems, which is crowded and cramped, tight and painful and very dark. So in just leading out of this talk about listening, where in all this is there authority? Or rather, to look right now, is one projecting authority onto Toni? It may be very obvious or it may be very subtle. And by authority, I don't mean respect. We have respect for each other, for what we have to say, and therefore we listen to each other out of respect. I don't talk about listening respectfully. I do this with a hope. I don't plan it, but I think it happens. Listen respectfully to what anyone has to say, wishes to bring out. But this projection of authority is something else, isn't it? And one can look right now, examine inwardly? Does one have an image of Toni as being this or that? And just see it, not, oh, I must do away with that. She doesn't want me to have one. Just to see it. Seeing is sufficient. It's a new function, a new dimension of being. It has nothing to do with our habitual thinking and critically evaluating. To see that there's an image I have of her. The seeing is the right action. Needs no more, but seeing. How the image affects one. Because if one really projects a lot of authority onto someone else, the person who's holding the talks, or whatever all one may believe in one's deities, God, the projection of authority puts a clamp on looking for oneself. It may do totally away with it. Not looking, thinking, examining for oneself, because one believes in some outer authority, which makes it somewhat seemingly easier to follow, to believe, to go along with. Then I don't have to think and look for myself, and one goes on in one's merry old ways. The cracking open of authority, the shattering of it, means one is standing alone and has to look for oneself. Albeit, one can share and examine together or listen to a talk and look whether it is so, what the person says. But not buy it. There's nothing for sale here, except a little book afterwards. A few tapes. But it's a tape that's for sale, and the book, not the content, that is beckoning and inviting to examine and question on one's own. And maybe it is a wonderful discovery that, yes, I am capable of finding out or examining for myself. I don't have to just invest everything in this authority. And noticing that the investment in the authority hinders the free movement of questioning, wondering for oneself, even if one does not know, one is in uncertainty, in discomfort, in agony, in doubt, to be with all of that whole thing, rather than evading it and escaping it by investing in authority. Do you get a feeling for what I'm saying? In this kind of examination of authority, how we project it in images and ideas, one realizes how attached one is to that, how one craves to finally find the final authority, who will settle things for me. Tell me what I need to do, tell me what is so, what is the truth, and what is the answer, what are the answers to all my questions. We crave that. Maybe as little children, that's the feeling we had. Our parents provided it for us. I had that feeling that my parents knew everything. And at one point it started cracking and shattering. So is there still this craving to find the final authority and to see that? Not do away, we can't do away with it. This is not the way of this work. The way of this work is not getting rid of or conquering or fighting, but to illuminate what's there. Craving for authority, craving for security, to feel that, to see that, and in the seeing, not needing to do anything about it. if it's seen often enough, clearly enough, deep enough, it withers away by itself. Maybe not instantly, or maybe for a moment, and then it is back. So see it again. And is the seeing pure or mixed with a thought, well, why didn't it go away? Why did it come back? There must be something wrong with this work. Because if it worked, I wouldn't have this craving for authority anymore. No, this is false thinking, which is obstructionist. Just see it as for the first time, the craving for security. And wondering about it. Wondering whether it has to be like that, whether it is inevitably so. Just wondering. There's no violence in that. No judgment cast. The flip side of the authority coin, one side the craving for authority, the other side fighting it. Needing to oppose, to confront, to fight someone whom one has really actually maybe unwittingly, unconsciously invested with authority, and then fighting the straw person. That's the flip side. So to watch that, the inner rebelliousness. Not say I shouldn't have this, or this is unwanted or criticized, but to watch it. To let that light shine on everything that's going on in this organism and in all of us. It's not unique to anyone to be craving authority or to be rebellious at the same time. This is how thought and reactiveness and the organism responding to it all has evolved. The human history is one of authority and revolt against authority. Revolution upon revolution. New systems, new regimes, and new revolutions, but always the same pattern. Different contents in different continents and countries. So we have been, our DNA has been soaked in this. Establishing authority and fighting it. Fighting it maybe to become the authority oneself. This is how sometimes this is misunderstood, what is being said here. It's misunderstood to say, be your own authority. Which means what? To be one's own authority. We use language very facilely, and yet don't quite look at what do we mean by it. I must be my own authority. Does that mean go by my past experiences on the basis of what I have experienced or learned or known in the past? Then the same blockage takes place. I can't see what is happening now because I'm basing it on, interpreting it on the basis of past knowledge, past experiences, which are always incomplete. Because in pure awareness there isn't even experience in the common sense. There's just what is. It doesn't need to be clung to or rejected. Therefore, it doesn't become this authoritative memory. So if we feel very strongly about something because I've experienced it, I know this from experience, and to mildly question it. at least to mildly question whether this insisting on my knowledge and experience prevents the openness of listening right now to what someone is saying. One doesn't have to accept what anyone is saying, but can one listen openly without any authority? This is the beauty of the openness of listening, looking, being. It doesn't need anything. It's sufficient, totally sufficient. In touch with everything. And interrelated with everything. So, after all of this talking, hope I'm not talking too fast. I have to remember to have breaks in there so we can look. After all this talking, what is our relationship with each other? The relationship of different roles that we play. What sometimes used to fill a discussion. It hasn't come up recently so much that people would say, you have a role, you are fulfilling a role. Don't deny it. You have the role of a teacher, whatever. But it's possible, it's altogether possible to be sitting here or there, wherever, and not incarnate a role. Just giving a talk, because that's on the daily order. 10 o'clock there's a talk, or 10:05. This is the person who's giving the talk. Doesn't have to be fulfilling any role. Role needs thinking in terms of roles, and if that thinking is absent, then there is no role, then there's just unfolding of saying what needs to be said. And talking and being with each other without role playing. Is that possible for 10 days, for 1 day? For 1 day, an hour or a moment? Being together without fulfilling any role? I should be this, I should talk like that. I hope she sees me like this. I hope he takes me for that. If he doesn't, I feel anxious. That can be observed as the role playing is examined, is lit up. So can we relate with each other role-less? Role-lessly? Let's leave the question open. So we don't make a new compulsion out of it. Thought loves to pick things up and make systems out of it. New images, new obligations. To fit in here, I must be the one who plays no role. There's already an idea. It's an open question to just listen to each other and not know what we are. In any fixed sense. Which does not mean one is not allowed to speak about oneself. Someone asked recently, I had a story running constantly through his mind. Is it all right to say it? To speak it? And we never came to what it really was, the content, but to look at this. One can look at it for oneself. And one has to experiment with it. Do say it. Do talk about yourself. There's nothing wrong with it, nothing right with it. It's something that can be observed. Can bring a tremendous sense of relief to have put something out there in the light of day. Maybe at the same time demolishing some image one had built up about oneself and putting out what it is really that one is feeling. And then maybe in the presence of another person, not to allow imagery of oneself in the mind of that other person by saying, this is really how I am. But one has to observe further. Is there a new attachment to the said story that one is becoming interesting to oneself and needs to keep up this interest for the nourishment it gives to the body? It gives energy if one is interesting to oneself. It gives some kind of food. It's everything is beautifully open for inspection, for examination, for discovery. And out of this discovery, something new emerges. Which is the freshness of this moment. We will end here for today.